to have the meeting open. I've already got myself slightly muddled up here, but I hope I'm okay. So first I would like to welcome, we have two new members. We have Ruth Steiner, if you put your hand up to Ruth, welcome. And Pete Fawcett, welcome. Ruth is our new Quaker representative, representing Quakers in the county. And Pete is representing the Catholics in the county within the schools. And we have Liz Farr here, who is representing Alison Naylor, our schools officer. So welcome, Liz.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
And we've got a very tight meeting today, unfortunately. Back to the fact that as we don't have 3 meetings, we've got far too much to try and discuss today. So please bear with us and try not to leave until we're finished. I know Midge can't because I'm driving her home, but the rest of you.
That was the flight.
Originally, it was going to be John doing prayers, but we had a little bit of a historical thing this week, where, as part of Interfaith Week, where I was invited by the mayor to do the prayers for the mayor at his town council meeting. And that is the first time a member of another faith has ever been invited to say prayers at council meetings. So I felt that it would be quite good to say the piece that I said to them, and then if you would like, if you can actually share and say the prayer with me, that's it's on this page. The Buddha made it clear that everyone is responsible for their actions, with all speech, thoughts and actions having consequences. In Buddhism, we call it karma, the universal law of cause and effect. He also taught that the more we understand the world and the more educated that we are, we have a responsibility to all those who need our care and support. In Herefordshire, we are proud to house a copy of the Magna Carta and historically to have been involved in the full acceptance of its laws. For those of us who live in this beautiful county and have vowed to support those around us, it is a reminder of the individual spirit of the people of Herefordshire, and that any one of us can only function by the good grace of those that we wish to help and serve. We're living in an historical time that is no less important than the days of those devising our first freedom laws over 700 years ago. As councillors, bearing in mind this was to the council, your words and your actions have far-reaching consequences. And now is that time to think big with your actions, to go forward in ways that will sustain our children's futures, making it a progressive county that they will wish to live in. Your decisions are your legacy that we all have to live with. And I left them then with the challenge of, do they dare to be different? And I wanted to say this prayer because it's read by His Holiness the Dalai Lama every single day. So all of those in the Tibetan tradition, especially those from his college, we all say this every day. And it was written over 1200 years ago, but it just seems so fresh, even for today. So if you join me in, may all beings everywhere plagued by suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored and find repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. On Mani Padme Hum. And we are actually being invited to put forward names of those who can represent their faith. So I will be contacting some of you with regards to that. As the Mayor would like to invite others. And also the Chairman of the Council has also suggested that we could be involved. So that was at a meeting with him yesterday. So on to ours today. Well, we're working with new members. Apologies from absence. I've got to apologise here.
Chair, do you want me to give the apologies?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Yeah, we have apologies from Mr. Caldecott, Councillor Harvey, Mr. Nichols and Canon Nugent.
Okay. If we can please note that Mr. Debenham is attending remotely. He is able to speak on the agenda items but does not get to vote. So is he with us?
He is, Chair.
He is.
And do we have Sarah David? Has she managed to join us? Yeah. Welcome, Sarah. She's actually another Quaker who's going to be there to support Ruth if Ruth isn't able to attend. So the next is to approve and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of March. I can't find it. Excuse me with all these.
Page 7. Page 7.
Thank you.
Chair, we will need a proposer and seconder for the minutes.
We just need to go through them first. Is there anything on page 1 that anybody wishes to make comment on? On page 2, which is page 8 actually, but there's the second page of the minutes. We've got on the agenda updates for the new RE initiatives again, something on Sacre membership. And on page 9, which is page 3. Okay. Could I have a proposal, Councillor Stone, and a seconder, please?
Okay.
Yep.
Oh,
Sorry, Mark. Number 5. Number 5. Is there? Have we got any public questions? I'm not aware of any. Okay.
No, there are no public questions.
Okay. Number 6, the Sacre working group proposal. We've actually got Malcolm Green with us. I think Malcolm there. Malcolm's a finance officer, and he's going to just explain what the process is for us to submit our proposals for funding. So good afternoon, Malcolm. Welcome.
Right, thank you very much, Chair. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, and I can just about see you way down there. But,
Okay. The funding for Sacre is provided in the school's dedicated schools grant, and there is a block of funding which is used for central services. Sacre is one of those services, and we currently have proposals to fund the running costs of Sacre at about £6,000 a year. That provides for the meetings you have now and the quadrennial review of the syllabus. Any additional funding that Sacre wanted to put a proposal forward for would have to be considered by Schools Forum at their meeting on January the 14th. Schools Forum has the statutory responsibility for making the decision on how central services for dedicated schools grant is spent. There are proposals that have been included in the schools budget consultation that fully spend the central services budget. So any increase in Sacre funding would require Schools Forum to consider reducing somebody else's budget. Which is not to say that can't happen, but clearly what I would need to take to Schools Forum would be a proposal from Sacre that sets out what the funding might be used for and the benefits. The paper that I've seen on item 6 gives a good start to that, but clearly I would want Schools Forum to consider some definite proposals that set indicative funding values for each of the 4 proposals that the chair has included in her paper. Prior to Schools Forum on the 14th of January, we have a working group of head teachers called the Budget Working Group, and they would usually and generally go over the funding proposals in detail and give advice to Schools Forum. And that's the general process. That so really that proposal from Sacre would need to be completed preferably by the end of term. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair, if there are any where people need greater clarification.
Any questions from around the table? Okay, well, that was very short and sweet, Malcolm. Thank you very much.
The process is very simple, Chair. You know, I think you effectively need to set out what you wish to do, and Schools Forum will consider it. I do have to say, though, that over many years, Herefordshire schools have been very poorly funded, and Schools Forum has taken the view that wherever possible, we will delegate money to schools, put the money in school budgets, and allow them to take the spending decisions on services that they value. So we retain as little funding as possible for central services and for central use. So the vast majority of the funding is in schools, and we encourage schools to buy back the services that they wish.
Well, I shall be attending the meeting on the 7th of December to help put the proposal forward. I presume it's going to be on Zoom.
Yes, they're all on Zoom. Yes, we'll have to, I suggest we confirm the meetings with you, Chair, because at the moment, the meetings in December were primarily arranged to consider the Department for Education's Special Educational Needs and Disabilities Review, and we have just been told that that will not be published until after Christmas. So it is quite likely the December meetings will not go ahead, and the business will be dealt with at the January meeting. The budget group is the 7th of January. The Schools Forum will be the 14th of January. Sarah Buffrey will have details of all of these in the committee services diary.
This is all being captured by the minutes, are they? Can't remember her name.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, they are being captured. Yeah.
Thank you. We have we don't have Matt today. He's on leave, so we have one remotely writing our minutes for us. Another welcome. Really sorry, I forgot about that. Okay, so if there's nothing else we need Malcolm for, is there? And it sounds rude saying that we can let you go, Malcolm, but it's because we know you're a busy man.
Yes, I would just emphasise, Chair, that the paper does need to say we want £10,000 for this, or £5,000 for that, or £3,000 for something else. It does need, you do need to draw up some hard figures for Schools Forum to consider.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and it's going to be discussed around the table. But thank you so much, Malcolm, for your time.
You're welcome. Anytime I can help.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Yeah, so, and I forgot to remind everybody that because the public have the opportunity to be here, but at the moment aren't allowed to physically be here, that it is actually going out and it is on YouTube. So everything we say at this meeting is going to go out for public record for forever, it seems, before you start all speaking. And I also, it's the chairman's duty to go and buy biscuits and things and fruit, which I couldn't buy anything that we have to share touching. So please, each side of the table, pass them down. There's some bags of crisps and there's some covered chocolate biscuits that are there and there for you. Oh, that's the best I could do for today, I'm afraid. I haven't got a copy of my vision because I thought it was going to be printed off, but it's not. And but really, because of cutting funding, which was something like 10 years ago, we've gone down to a point of not being able to hold 3 meetings a year. Now, I really do feel that we do need the 3 meetings a year for continuity. We've had 8 months since our last meeting. And by the time we get back into the swing of it, even the March one is a long way away, but to go from March right to now, and each time we've had such a loaded agenda that I'm almost disrespectful and can't give you time to talk as much as we would wish to get through it all. So I feel that the proposal, I'm proposing that when we put in our proposal for more money, we put to one side things like the 3 meetings a year, the increasing costs that RE today, or whoever gets is awarded that contract, is going to charge us, the increase in how much it's going to cost for the next syllabus. So I feel they should be on one page, as it were, and then on the other page on how to make us an effective Sacre. So within that, I feel that we should rejoin Sacre, and we should be having some involvement with the teachers and with the pupils. So I sent out my paper yesterday to you all about what I would like to do. Now, National Sacre have just introduced a training programme. We used to be a member of National Sacre, and actually I was on National Sacre as well, and nothing seemed to really happen. And when we had a cutback, we had to decide, unfortunately, to not be a member. Whereas now, because they're doing this training programme, and some of it's for free and some of it's going to be charged to us, and Ruth, bless her, actually attended one of the free ones for new members, didn't you?
Yes.
Do you want to make comments on it?
It was very good.
Okay. I feel it's really worth it for us to rejoin National Sacre so we can be a part of their training, a part of their advice forum that they have, and attend or online attend their conferences, because we're very isolated out here. We're isolated geographically, and we appear to be isolated from what is going on. So 2 things I'd like to propose is that, one, we put in for funding so that we can be a member and have some money within that for training, but also that we invite one of them remotely to attend our March meeting so they can discuss what National Sacre do now and to make contact with us. I feel would be fruitful. If so, for that one around the about inviting the person from National Sacre for our next meeting, could I just have a raise of hands if you're in agreement? Right. Okay. All agree. And I've actually been advised that the council have not used their internal training budget this past year, not used it all, due to COVID. So I'm proposing that within our proposal going out, we also put a proposal to the council proper to say, could we have some of that training budget to pay for training with National Sacre? So for that. We're not meeting up with the schools. We used to do all sorts of things with the schools at different levels. And I know COVID aside, I do feel that we should be doing something more, and I would like to see it happen in the next 2 or 3 years. And for the one for the primary school, I've actually got a link with Madley Church. The vicar there is extremely interfaith. We've done something with him before. It's an enormous church. It's in a very middle-class catchment area, and the headmistress of the local school wants to meet me and be involved with things. So I was thinking that perhaps we could run a small version of my plan there this coming year, next June, say, and then iron out any problems so we can actually hold the larger event in the middle of the city the following year. And Lou has offered her school for being the school that it's held at. So thank you very much, Lou. And I do need a committee of interested people, of teachers from all over, parents even, to make that particular event happen, because there's no way I can run it all on my own. And Lou has kindly offered her student teacher to go on it. But if people around the table, if you want to come on to that separate committee, please, or if you know some other people, dedicated parents that could help, because there's going to be quite a lot of organising. There will be a cost, but what it will fulfil is a cultural role as well, so that the parents not only learn what the children are doing in RE, and the children bring their parents along on a lovely sunny day, of course, but also that the cultural identity of the different people that have moved into Herefordshire, it'll be a chance for them to meet the parents and the children and to show their dance and their music and their food and all sorts of things. So I feel it could be a very important day, and it's something other Sacres have done many times in other areas. I mean, we're just a wee bit behind on this type of idea. And Stephen could always vouch for other Sacres have done quite a lot of interaction, haven't they, with the schools? So do pipe up, please. So it's unusual for me to be doing all the talking. And then the other one I would like to get going with the senior children is to have some interaction. And Stephen and I've helped with running conferences before, where we take the children, the teachers sit to one side, and we take the children and we mix them up and buddy up with children from other schools. And then we have a whole day of programme for them to get to know one another and get to know all the faiths they've been learning since they were this high, that they actually get the chance to talk to faith representatives, to have a debate, to have workshops, and to not only challenge them, but it draws together all their knowledge ready for when they're taking their exams. So do you want to make any comment about that? So I feel they've been very successful.
Yes, thanks, Chair. So we've had a number of opportunities with primary schools mixing together, but secondary schools meeting together, several schools coming together, and there was one, in fact, some of you will remember, we had West Hill Sacre funding to put together some training for visitors, and then also put on a conference where we brought some schools together, including schools from Birmingham into Herefordshire as well, and enabling Herefordshire pupils to encounter people from different faiths and backgrounds. just really exciting days and really good opportunities. Thanks some of you were in Cambridge. We had Westhill Sacre funding to put together some training for visitors, and then also put on a conference where we brought
Just to
some
remind
schools
you.
together, including schools.
We also, Nidge and I used to be on another committee that we'd get funding, and in particular, who was the teacher from the tall one? Kate McGoughlin, yes, Kate.
Wigmore.
In the days of Kate, and over at Wigmore, we used to invite the school, the Muslim school from, or two of the Muslim schools from Birmingham, and they'd come out, or vice versa, and they'd have a day together, experiencing each other's way of approaching education and their faith. Yes, please.
Just to say, with one of our schools, Streatham Douglas, is actually running a project with Global British Council where they are working with 3 schools in Pakistan and looking at RE, looking at worship, as well as part of the way they're working. It's now spreading to Cannon Pine and also to Helmsley School, also connecting that way as well, to try and enlarge virtually and meeting with children and teachers from other countries, exploring the faiths there as well. So there's another way that we can add in as well, and helping schools to connect virtually with places abroad to look at how they worship too.
That's a brilliant idea, actually. Yeah. If you can put a bit of that in an email to me, and we'll have it included. That
Will do.
yeah. So comments from the floor, please. No, you could. Midge.
Could I just ask, are you planning to form this committee for the shared day, the special day? Are you going to do that before we know if we've got any funding, or are we waiting for funding first?
No, I want to do it pretty soon, because the one at Magley Church we can possibly manage with no funding, and I say that reservedly because it's going to need a lot of work from parents and that to help make it work. But so if that answers it. But obviously, I'm hoping then that little committee can grow and be a bigger committee for the following year for the main event. And then if that main event's successful, we can look at doing it every 2 or 3 years. I don't know. I'm just sort of throwing that as out there, rather than it being a one-off, never to happen again. I feel, even if it's something different, it doesn't have to be exactly the same event. I just feel that every year we ought to do something with either the secondary schools or the primary schools. And then I'm doing separate things with the special schools. So yes, Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Chairman. I think something on the lines you suggest, a sort of pilot effort with Magley or wherever, would be a very good start, especially if it doesn't have to be centrally funded. But the other point I just want to make is to ensure that we're all talking about the academic year 2022-2023 for a secondary conference or a larger scale event, simply because I'm sure Lou here would agree with me, the secondary schools at the moment are having to really cope from week to week and month to month this academic year with all the uncertainty about examinations and so on. It'd be very unfair to even ask them to hold anything in this academic year. I think we should be talking about the following academic year, be quite clear about that, so that we don't appear to be trying to do something this year when they've already got more than enough to contend with. Thank you.
I certainly agree with you there. I was thinking that I think it was Lou that advised me that saying that it's better to do the secondary schools in the autumn term when they're not in the middle of their exams. Yes. So I would be proposing, because if we get any funding, we're talking about 1st of April 2022. So I was proposing that we do something with the senior children next autumn term and something summer 2023 for those in the primary school, to give us quite a lead time for this. And of course, we've still got the COVID scenario on, so we don't want to be planning anything that would have to be cancelled. I'm just assuming that we can, hoping that we will be able to start mixing safely together a little bit more by this time next year. So does that timing sound right for you teachers? Yeah. Okay.
Can I say something? If the funding wasn't forthcoming,
You need to bring the speaker nearer to you,
Sorry.
Mitch. You've got such a quiet voice, I'm afraid.
if the funding wasn't forthcoming from the council, I'm just wondering if we could apply to the West Hill awards, which they give out £4,000 to different projects. So that would be a possibility.
If Stephen could answer on that and Colin St Gabriel, please.
Yes, West Hill and Sacre do give out grants of around £4,000 to projects that Sacre has put forward. We would need to apply by the 31st of March. They funded Herefordshire, that's a number of years ago now. But if we put together a proposal that was innovative and looked appealing to the people who make the decisions about who gets the grants, then that's something that we could consider. I mean, West Hill and Sacre are actually putting on one of their webinars to support people who want to apply for funding. That's coming up in the next few weeks, actually. So
yes, which I was hoping that at least one, if not two of us, could attend that for that very reason. There is, I think Stephen will probably put me right if I'm wrong, with West Hill now, they either it has to be because you're in a certain deprived area, so you desperately need the help for the cultural reasons as well, or you have to be able to demonstrate that you are going to be helping more than your own county. So it's recorded and sent further out. So they've tightened up a little bit, and it's quite a bit of work. I mean, let's be fair on this. To apply to them in Colin St Gabriel's, I would need somebody, one of you, that are really good at doing that type of thing. It's not my forte. So I agree that we should be trying for some funding, and maybe even try anyway. Because the other thing is, when the schools forum decide, they are going to be deciding on 1st of April 2022 to the end of March 2023, and they do it annually. But when we do things like a contract for Stephen, it has to be on a 3-year basis, and there's no guarantees. So it gets a little bit muddly in my head sometimes over that one. I don't know how it would be, to ask Malcolm, I don't know how it would be if they knew that we were getting some matched funding, whether that would encourage them or whether that would be a reason for not giving us any. So but is there anything more that you could say on the matter, Stephen? I had got it right about West Hill. I think I looked it up. I think I'd.
Yes, West Hill are looking to make sure the impact goes beyond a few schools, but it ideally goes beyond local authority as well. But certainly that it's within it impacts more than just a handful of schools that are actually involved in being there on the day. So they're looking for wider impact.
Which I think we can put it under the fact that we live in an area that isn't full of moss and baharas and etc., and that we have a greater need than perhaps some do. Councillor Stone, did you want to make a comment?
I was just going to point out rural isolation.
That's the word. Thank you very much.
And
yes.
Secondly, there are certain parts of Herefordshire that are in the deprivation, 25% deprivation index, including part of Hereford and also part of Leominster.
Well, I think, what was the numbers we worked out, Lou? What's your catchment area? How many children was it? Was it something like 1,500? No, it was Ben that told me. It was about 1,500 children feed into Bluecoat School. So that Saturday, if it's held at that school, and primary children are invited along, that's quite a number of children that it's supporting, because it would be known through the school, etc. And I'm sure you could get some bright spark to come and film it, bits of it. So So actually, so if we go back, so I'm taking up lost time here. Could I ask for a proposal for accepting vote or everything that I've said, or would you like it broken down? Are you all in agreement that we try and get some extra funding so that we can do things with schools? Okay, if I can have a proposer and a seconder, please. Lou proposing, Midge seconding. And do you feel it's the right way, just by show of hands, do you feel it's the right way to put aside the money that we need to survive being increased as opposed to the projects that we would like to enhance the Sacre and our impact in the schools? Yeah, so you're all happy with that. Now I do need, Councillor Stone has been very busy, and Ben, I can't remember his surname, Porticott, I thought it was, hasn't been able to help. I do need somebody around the table, please, who's really good at putting in a proposal for the finance for the schools forum. It's not my forte, and I'm really being a bit blank on it. Is there somebody that can help me, please? And not Tracy, because Tracy is so overloaded, she's not to offer. Oh, please, somebody, please think about it and come up to me, because I do need some help to get that one through. Okay, is there any more on number 6? And we're going to invite a member of National Sacre for our next meeting. Number 7, I can be quiet on this one. The draft Sacre annual report, please, and that's yours, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Chair. So yes, in your papers, on page starting on page 15 in the report papers is our annual report. It's brief. It fulfills the current requirement really for us for an annual report. Just updates National Sacre and the Department for Education on what we've been doing. It's as similar to last year, just updates obviously events that we've been carrying out. You can see that it just sets out the general background. It sets out about the agreed syllabus that we've launched in the last year. It talks about the 2 conferences that we've held, which we will talk about a little bit later on the agenda. There's a little bit of space for in item section 5 on local groups and other CPD, but we'll hear a little bit about that later on in the agenda in item 8, when Tracy will tell us about the naturally local group, and then we'll be able to insert that. You'll notice that this is a fairly formal document, and in the past, Sacre has talked about making it more school friendly and more appealing. So that may well be something that Sacre wants to do again this time, but this is just for your comments really, any corrections, any amendments that you think should be put in this draft annual report. Otherwise we can approve it.
President, Councillor Stone.
Chairman, I propose we accept the report. Agree to it.
I'm all those in favour? All those any against? Okay. What we tend to do, sorry, new members, I should have mentioned this beforehand. We tend to do around the table, just vote, and if we're all in agreement, then it saves us having to stop and go into our own groupings and come up with an answer than that person, which takes a good 10 minutes each time. So we decided it was easier doing around the table vote. Yes, Councillor Stone.
Thank you again, Chairman. I just wanted to thank Stephen for all the work he's put in helping prepare the report. I know you're both involved with it, but thank you, Stephen, very much for putting it in the usual succinct way that you have done in the past. Much appreciated.
Thank you, and Chair. I'll just add the information about the local groups before
Yes.
sending it in again. So if that's
Yeah.
before it's.
And are we putting pictures in this time? Where have we got to on that idea?
Well, I think that I don't know, Mitch, if you were going to talk about the newsletter, which is the sort of effectively these are some of the key things that happen in the report, but it's in a different version really.
Yeah. Actually, Tracy is going to mention it.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that now?
I'm happy to now or later.
I'm not sure where we got it in actually.
It's a bit later.
Later.
Yes,
It is later, is it? Okay, we'll leave it till later then. Thank you. Keep you on the straight and narrow, all of you. I haven't got Matt here today. Is there anything else within the number 6 that you wish to, number 7 rather, that you wish to comment on around the table? Okay. Yes, sorry.
Sorry, Chair. There's one more point, which is that National Sacre have put together a new outline format for a report. So we can bring that to Sacre next time, and then the next annual report will use this new format.
That sounds as if it's going to be very useful, actually. Yeah. Have you had sight of it?
Yeah.
Is it good?
It's more work. There's a lot more detail. That's partly because NASICA it used to be that QCDA, Qualifications Curriculum Development Authority, used to do an analysis of annual Sacre reports and write an annual report on the annual reports. For the last, since QCDA was abolished, that hasn't happened. But National Sacre has been talking to the Department for Education and has agreed that they will write an annual report of annual reports. And so they put in a new outline, a new pro forma, if you like. They put in all the things they'd like to be able to analyse nationally. So there are more details that will be required.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. As I say, National Sacre have really improved actually over this last couple of years. There's been quite a change, and I think it's worth considering them again. And number 8, plans for. I'm losing track here. It is for number 8, isn't it? Plans for professional development 2022. To consider plans for further continuous professional development supporting schools on report on the summer conferences, proposals for 2022, Sacre member training. Okay, if you can do the first 2, please, Stephen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So since we last met, we've had 2 conferences. We've had the primary and secondary conference, and starting on page 19 in your papers, I've included the feedback, the evaluations from the primary and then the secondary. We'll look at the primary first, and that was the 15th of June. We did it as a joint conference with Worcestershire, Sacre, and you can see 109 people attended that. So around 30 were Herefordshire teachers, which is, it's a smaller county in terms of number of schools, and the last conference that we had that was not a syllabus launch and that was just a Herefordshire conference, we had in 2019 there were 22 teachers present, so 29, 30 teachers present from Herefordshire. But this one is an encouraging increase. It was online, and you can see the programme there as well. So you can see 64 evaluation forms back, and you can see the feedback in terms of the numbers. The overall value there, 72% seeing the conference as excellent and 28% as good. We won't go through the comments. I hope you've had a chance to have a look through them. Very positive. Positive in terms of the experience, even though it's online, trying to make it as an active and interactive day as possible. You'll see for the points to note for next year, there were some, not criticisms, but there were some questions that we might like to consider for a summer conference. clearly an issue. If it goes on online again, then there are some things we need to bear in mind about timing, whether we don't have things over lunchtime. And then there's something about the programme as well, the reception teacher there saying that they felt a bit out of their depth and wish there was a little bit more for younger children. So that's the sort of thing that we would need to bear in mind and consider for the programme. We'll look at that in a moment. You can see as well the actions that people are going to take up, very, very active. Almost everybody had made a comment about what they were going to go away and do. And so this was intended to be a conference that helped them with implementing the new agreed syllabus. So it was a stage on from the launch that we did in December last year. So that's very positive as well. And then there are some suggestions for the future training and support. And we've tried to take a note of some of those in terms of the programme for 2022. But there are other things I think that might tie in with some of the proposals that the chair has made for conferences, pupil conferences and encounters in the future as well. So I'll just pause there in case there are any comments people were able to attend before we look at the secondary one.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yes, sorry, Councillor. Yes, please.
So, Councillor Hewitt, just an observation, and this is maybe a little bit from a sort of a commercial bias. But when you look at reviews online for products, you generally see comments that are, comments for the good, comments for the excellent, and comments for the satisfactory. Most of the comments you have on here, in fact, I think all of them, are very positive comments. But I'm interested in the grit in the oyster. So where you have on RE and climate justice, for instance, 8% found it only satisfactory. It would have been really interesting to see some comments from those people in order to drive improvement. So that's just my little comment. I don't know whether that's fair or could be taken on board.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yes, so I've given you all the comments here. So
all of the comments
this
are
is
here.
a full list of comments. I mean, that's why it's extensive, because I've just put them all down. I haven't extracted any.
Fair enough.
Yes, it is Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Chairman. I couldn't help noticing the following comment. I quote, "I enjoyed the interactive elements and I particularly enjoyed the sessions led by Stephen. He's an engaging speaker, had a good mix of listening and doing in his sessions, and he provided some useful and realistic strategies to try out when back in school. Overall, a fab day." Don't want to embarrass you, Stephen, but we brought to Sacre's attention. Thank you.
I think perhaps that's one comment I could have extracted.
You're not blushing. But yes, thank you, Stephen, for running such a successful conference under the circumstances. And I'm sure that people look forward to being together. For those who, sorry, yes, please do.
I just wanted to comment on the fact, it's Mark Harrington here. I attended, but also I wanted to point out that I think because it was online, there was more people attending. We are finding a great take up from teachers because they can access things online, because it means they haven't got to travel. So it's good for the climate as well, but it means that they can be in school and deal with other things that are going on, because often the RE lead can be the head as well. So I think it's quite something to consider that we do almost recommend that it would be online, because I think you'd get more engagement than you would if you had it in person, especially from our more rural schools on the edge of the county. It would be open for them to come.
The only problem with doing it online is that the teachers in the past have really engaged a lot more when it's been in person, and they get the chance to meet each other, which is the only time they get to meet other teachers of RE and share, even though they're having a lunch or that, people are sharing the whole time. They don't ever see it as a jolly. They really make full use of the day. So I can see the benefit both sides, and maybe when we get to discuss the following one, the next one's perhaps an element of online and an element in person could be considered. I agree with you for the reasons you said that, yes. Any other comments, please?
Hello, can you hear me? It's Stuart Debenham online.
Oh, hello there.
Hi, I was going to back both of you up really on those comments because it is lovely to be in person. However, we managed to get 5 different people at the 5 different sessions, which was really helpful because I managed to do the Ofsted one as head teacher, and then the different teachers managed to do a session each, which was really, really helpful actually. So swings and roundabouts really, I guess.
For those who are not aware, we used to actually have to run them ourselves as the Sacre. And when the funding was slashed, we discussed with RE today, and they took on running it and upfronted the costs. And obviously, if there was any profit left, taking any profit as well. But they put all the hard work in without knowing whether they're going to get the uptake. So it has saved us because we weren't able to run the conferences anymore, and there's quite a lot of upfront costs with, hiring them and that. So it works for us, but I wanted to explain that to the newcomers. Yes, so on to you again, Stephen, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. So the other one is the secondary conference. For the last few years, we've been doing a 3 counties conference with Gloucestershire and Worcestershire as well. And I mean, you're right about attendance. Generally, primary, we've had a lot of attendance. The number of attendees for the 3 counties conference was disappointingly low, 22 attendees there. But as you can see, they were very happy with the day. And I mean, well, I don't know if anyone here was able to get to the day. You were able to. So, well, you've seen the clients. No, I don't know if you want to comment about the day and whether face-to-face is better than online.
Online was very useful because it enabled people to attend that wouldn't normally be able to. So it was good to have that option, and it was helpful. It's very difficult though, because face to face you do get to network with other teachers, and in those downtimes when you're having lunch together or whatever, you make contact with them and share ideas that you can then take back into your own classrooms and things like that. So you do miss out on that with the online parts. It's 50-50 really.
Actually, I have noticed, Stephen, that on the comments for both of these, they are very much down on our previous ones. We used to get, or you used to get, something like between 85 and 95, 98% on virtually everything. So obviously the online is not being as satisfactory, is my take on it. But would you like to respond?
That's an excellent take. It's absolutely the technology that means that people's responses are slightly lower than previous years. It's nothing to do with presentation.
Remember, this is going out on YouTube.
Stand by those comments.
No, quite seriously, what in the teacher meet, the fact that it was only seen as good by 43%. I always see good now as a criticism because you've always done so well in the past. So maybe there wasn't quite so much, 2 people together make 3 ideas type thing when you're online. Please, Lou.
The teacher, in its defence, was at the end of a very long day, which I also think could possibly skew the statistics on that. And you've had a long day, and when you're following people like Steve and that, it's quite a hard act to follow.
There also, yeah, I mean, that's the Teach Me is particularly challenging as well. It's relying on teachers to be able and prepared to talk about things that they want, that they've done in their classrooms, and actually to do that online via Zoom. They don't always have the resources to show because they've done it in the classroom. Whereas when you do the face-to-face stuff in a conference, then those Teach Me responses are often much higher. In fact, sometimes I would say they're disappointingly higher for the Teach Me than they are for the sessions that we prepare. So I'm just seeing this as a balancing act now. It's just rebalancing, just for 1 year. Next year, let's see what the results are.
Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I see it as a balancing act as well. I quite agree, Stephen. I think one of the many great advantages in Zoom conferences, but one of the disadvantages is the sheer length of time sitting in front of a screen, especially to some of us slightly more senior people, gets very uncomfortable after a time on the back, the neck, and so on. And even if you have a bit of a gap in between, you're basically in front of that screen rather, hours on end. Whereas when you're moving around at a conference, when you're all together, you can move from one room to another, and then you have to lunch somewhere else, and it's all far more relaxing. Whereas you just feel so tensed up when you're on the screen all the time. It's all right for a conference sort of going on for an hour or something, but when it's like one or two of the council meetings we've had that have gone on for several hours and into the afternoon, you're absolutely exhausted by the end of it, and that may provide you with slightly less favourable comments.
I think also there's the temptation, especially when you're a teacher in a school and you're on the Zoom conference in here, and so that you find other important things to do, and you slip off at lunchtime, so you come out of the mode. So it's right. It's always been quite good to physically take the teachers out of their classrooms and get them to ourselves for the day.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's just another comment. Any other comments, please, from around the table? Yes, please, Councillor Hewitt.
Well, I'd have to endorse that. My own experience of teaching is that it's quite a lonely job, actually, although you're involved with children an awful lot of the time. And that actually having that ability to be face-to-face with another teacher and present teaching materials, or, just to look at the children's books. You can't really do that effectively online. So I think there's a place for online work, but I also think that teachers need to be nourished by their conversations with other teachers.
Yeah.
And I fully endorse that as well. But of course, there's also the thing that's where Sacre is just so important. We are really a brilliant asset if only the schools would realise it, and we have the opportunity to support the teachers. Sorry, plug for ourselves there as well. Is there anything more on this that you would like to say, Stephen, please?
Not on the old conference, but thinking about planning for the new ones.
Yes, please. Yes, let's take that point.
So we are at the early stages of planning the summer 2022 conferences. There are a few decisions to take and options to consider. If we think about the primary conference, first of all, we've got a date of the 4th of July. That's for a Herefordshire primary conference. You can see that I've included Worcestershire's primary conference as well, the date there and the programme, at least the selected elements of the programme. So one decision is whether we want to join with Worcestershire again. If we were to go online, it'd be very easy to do that because that's, as we found this year, numbers could be up with all the drawbacks that there are from that as well. We could have a separate Herefordshire conference on, as you can see, on the 4th of July. You can see that my brilliant new young colleague, Adam Robertson, fresh out of the primary classroom. And so he'd be able to do that day with me. So that's one of the decisions to take, whether we want to be with Worcestershire and potentially doing it online, or whether we want to be doing it as Herefordshire ourselves, and perhaps being able to do it face to face if we can find a suitable venue. And so those are some decisions that you might like to consider. And then you can see that there are some of the possible topics and workshops that we could include in the day. And so any suggestions about which ones you think would be most helpful for teachers, and any other suggestions you think would be good on those, in that programme, now's an opportunity to put those ideas. Thank you.
Could I ask the first one, how do we feel about meeting in person? We're talking about next July. Do we feel that it might be wise to? What are people's thoughts around the room, please?
I I think it's about impact as a Sacre and how far we want to reach, and if we're going to have a greater impact online by offering to primary schools online, that was very well received and numbers were up, then that is something we need to consider potentially, or having some sort of hybrid approach so that some can come in person, some can come online. Was that an idea?
Please do answer.
It's very challenging to have an interactive live day in person, and also to include and make interactive the sort of Zoom online as well. I think it's possible, but I think it's an industry now actually where you can facilitate those kinds of days and earn yourself a lot of money. So just because it is complex in order to be able to do that, in order to make a Zoom call interactive, breakout rooms have to have everything online, and then of course you want your teachers in the room to be working in groups as well. So it's possible, but it is challenging.
Could there even be a way that those that come in on I'm saying Zoom, but come in on Zoom, can only join in by listening to the actual lecture parts of it, and they sort of come in at a different cost? I don't know, I'm just throwing out a thought.
Well, I think that's possible, yeah, but I would have thought, I think a good training will involve and be interactive, involve teachers, otherwise it's much more limited. The conferences don't include lectures, do they? They're about trying things out and seeing how things work. So I wouldn't recommend that. I think if we were going to do a sort of hybrid event, it would have to be in a way that enabled all teachers to get involved. But sorry.
Councillor Hewitt?
I just got a suggestion. Why don't you have, I absolutely think teachers need the nourishment of being together and talking to one another, and to, as Stephen says, to be interactive. But could not someone have the responsibility of presenting an online result, if you like, of that day, which shows the activities, poses questions, and then invites others to comment on it as after the event, so to speak, just so that they can feel like they've, I think there's a place for online participation, but it is pretty difficult unless you employ a company that's going to charge you an awful lot of money to facilitate that. Anyway, that's my suggestion.
Councillor Stone?
Thank you, Chairman. Personally, though I wouldn't be involved because of not being a teacher, but personally, I would much prefer meeting face to face, if at all possible. Bearing in mind it will be June, you can have lots of fresh air. You can even encourage people to interact a bit outside, out of doors during the day. You don't all need to be closeted together and too close together. I'd be more in favour of online sort of in the middle of winter, especially, currently case rates are very high, etc. But it is slightly different, and I think we found this in the last year or so in the sort of midsummer months. And I think there were so many advantages of everybody getting together again. It's a better feel about the whole thing. And for some of the reasons I gave in my earlier remarks, I would personally prefer it. But I think it's really up to the teacher representatives to say what they would be comfortable with. I wouldn't want to impose my views on anyone else.
Would you two, three like to comment?
I think there's a good argument for both. That's the problem. That it's going to be really hard to manage, because actually when you're in person, you are physically far more involved, and it is very difficult when you are, like you said, on a screen all day to not feel quite as much active participation, even when you're in the breakout rooms and things like that. And those are great because you get to talk to more people than you would necessarily in it, because you move tables and things and all sorts. But it's a really difficult one. Like you said, there are in that school that's, I think that Mr. Devlin was talking about, that actually you can have multiple staff, whereas as most schools I would imagine cannot release multiple members of staff, so kind of you can direct it to the person that needs it most. But I don't think I can help make a decision because there's pros and cons to both so strongly. I think you agree, Lou.
Well, from a secondary point of view, there are far less secondary schools in Hereford and far less specialist heads of department within Herefordshire. So it's really beneficial to go and meet other people in person and meet other specialists. So that meeting in person is really important, I think, for the secondary conference. But I'm like you, I could possibly make a decision.
I can remember we usually use Puckrup Hall because it's on the edge of the three counties, so that people from the other counties, it's equidistant on it. And one year we happened to choose the hottest day of the year. And all the teachers kept disappearing and sitting under the trees because they kept going to places I couldn't get to in my wheelchair to round them up. And a lot of the shepherd and their sheep came to mind when we were doing it. So.
It was picnic lunches outside.
Oh, it was. So yes, perhaps it could work as an idea. So, I mean, quite seriously, do we make the decision and then what is the reality that if we were to hire Puckrup Hall, at what stage do we not get our deposit back? Or do you not get your deposit back?
I think if we were going to do a Herefordshire conference, we wouldn't go to Puckrup Hall. You can see that I've got Puckrup Hall down, and that is booked at the moment for the three counties secondary. I mean, as Lou suggested, secondaries would appreciate that, but I wouldn't do a Herefordshire or even a Herefordshire Worcestershire conference in Puckrup. It's too far away. I mean, I think if we were doing joint with Worcestershire, then I would think it would be online. If we're doing just Herefordshire, we've got the choice. I mean, in the past, Lou's school has offered, Blue Coat School has offered to host, and that would be great if that's a possibility. But I realise there are other constraints on schools as well, for having other people coming in. So, I mean, in one sense, the safest thing is to say let's just do it online because we know that we can do it online. You don't have to worry. Or you might do. I mean, you can see the secondary one. We booked Puckrup Hall, and we'll do a backup. The backup will be that we'll do it online if things don't work out. So you could do it that way and say that we'll do the Monday the 4th of July for Herefordshire. Maybe a school is able to host, and then if for whatever reason we are not able to meet face to face on the 4th of July, we can say it's going to be online as the sort of backup for that.
So if we discuss the primary one, or make a decision on the primary conference, what do people think? Does somebody want to propose something? Do we propose that it's an online one? Okay, I propose that we do an online one for the primary schools for next year, and then maybe the following year it'd be safe enough for us to meet in person. Seconder?
I'll second that. Yeah.
Okay, and go ahead with your plans for the three counties secondary conference. And obviously you'll be keeping your, you'll make the decision on whether it's safe to do so to meet in person. And the one that you haven't mentioned, are we getting any further with the special schools one? Or do we feel that we need to leave that one until it's safer to do so?
We will need to leave that one until we've got some funding confirmed for that. So.
Okay. But possibly even then we'd be looking at next autumn term, wouldn't we, rather than summer? Okay, is there anything more on the proposals for the conferences?
Can I just?
Yes, Bear.
It's just that I was looking at suggestions for future training that the teachers had suggested. And one of the things was ideas for foundation stage and key stage 1 and early years foundation stage. And there wasn't much in the proposal for the primary conference about that. And I just wondered if there was any possibility of including those in the primary conference.
but some nervousness on the part of an ex-secondary teacher to talk about doing early years stuff in front of early years practitioners and specialists. That's why the hesitation there. So I take that point. I mean, I raised that earlier, didn't I, about the feedback as well. We haven't included it, but it may be that we can find some local people who might be happy to share some ideas. But I don't want to look in any particular direction in the room because I don't want to put
Well, I
pressure
am,
on anyone.
especially as they're under this special training award at the moment. No, quite seriously, would there be a place for a very qualified primary teacher to be taking one of the workshops?
If that teacher is interested.
It's something that I'm doing a training thing this year, kind of on putting together bigger training packages rather than just locally. So it might be something Stephen and I can discuss at some point.
If anybody in the room in favour of Tracy taking on some extra work, it would be appreciated. And besides that, I feel that it would be a perfect platform for Tracy to discuss what she's been doing for the past year. So even have a slot for her for that, even if you don't go forward and run a workshop. That was a very good point that you picked up on, Midge. Are there any more? Yes, please.
And I'd be willing to do other workshops if you need anything as well, Stephen. Just let me know.
Yeah. And we have another qualified teacher listening in here.
I'm in no way qualified to teach early years, I don't think. I think the online sessions would be great, actually. Just again, for the access of different people doing it. I know our early years teacher would be very interested in taking part if there is an early years session. But it also gives everybody else an opportunity to go to a session which is particularly relevant for them as well. So I definitely appreciate that.
Well, there we are. We've got 3 very qualified teachers that can be perhaps fitted into this, Stephen. And of course, I always jump in and say, do not forget the faith representatives when you're doing these. The schools always appreciate having faith representatives involved. I know it's far more difficult online, but are there any more comments on this before we move on? What is the time, please, Councillor Stone?
Nearly 3:15, Chair.
Oh, we're doing quite well. Was there another comment, Stephen? So we're on to, sorry.
Well, only that if we bring full plans back to the next Sacre meeting, then we'll work that out. But if we put out via the bulletin about dates, just to let teachers know in advance about there will be a conference, it'll be online, it'll be on this date, it'll include some of these topics so that they've got it well enough in advance. And then because it's July, I think advertising it in March is probably earlier with the full details.
And if it can be mentioned at teachers' meet as well, please, Tracy.
Yeah.
And maybe even a paragraph of helping them to be able to put forward about why they're going. If they need any support with fine words. Okay, and then the Sacre member training. Originally, I know Stephen's here, but we had said about Stephen, because RE Today used to run the Sacre training programme. But of course, the National Sacre have now come out with this new training of their own, which I feel is much more realistic opportunity than taking on RE Today because of the cost, as much as anything. So I don't know how we could take part in some of the training that costs money at this stage, but I would like us, I don't know, any comments from around the room? So we've already decided we're going to look into the National Sacre training programme, haven't we? And try and apply for some funding for that. I don't know how to cover ourselves before that, but what I propose is that I send round details about it via email to all our group, so at least we've got what is available. Any comments? I mean, you don't want to do it for £30, do you, Stephen?
Personally, maybe.
Sorry, I can put you on the spot. Okay. Is there anything more about Sacre training that anybody wanted to mention? Okay, a teacher group updates and updates on visitors into schools. I wanted Tracy to share with us her visitors list and to discuss it. Did you give me a copy, Tracy?
If not, I've got one here for you, Chair.
I know I get muddled up as it is anyway. I went through this with Tracy the other evening, and quite a few of the members I know, and I know Stephen knows some of them as well. It's a brilliant start. Thank you so much, Tracy, for all the hard work that you put into this and the hours. I'm sorry we didn't give you enough time at the last meeting, but we were so overrun with items. It is a start, but it is a start only. And on the whole, they are representatives who live outside of the county that are coming in. So we haven't got an awful lot of representation in the county. I'm sorry, Councillor Hewitt, we didn't give a copy either. I do apologise for that.
I was late, it's my fault.
No, it's not. We did go round. Sorry. So you can see, please take this away. We need to find more people that are prepared to go into the schools. Would you like to talk about some of the people, the experiences that you've had, Tracy?
So what I wanted to do, I was asked to do it by a colleague within NATRA, was to put together something that, as a very busy teacher, when you're looking for someone to come in to support your teaching and learning, that you know that person that's going to come in is going to have the best impact on the children. Sometimes you can get somebody in and they don't always deliver something in the way that you were hoping to support what you're doing, or it can even end up being contradictory. So I reached out to other teachers and spoke to lots of people to make sure that everybody that was in here is somebody that's already been into a school, that people have had very positive experiences about, and people that are very flexible, because in all of our schools, although we're all very similar in that we're all Herefordshire, we all want different things and we all approach things differently. So we really, really wanted to make sure that people were able to adapt to the different things that teachers needed. So some people in here that I've had most of these people in to visit myself, and if not, I made sure that I spoke to them and spoke to the schools they visited. Just to pick a random example, Tim and Liz Greeno from Challenge Community Church, we work very closely with them. They do a lot of our pre-COVID. We do lots of assemblies where they come and tell Bible stories. It's very interactive, and they were able to do it very engagingly for the little ones, as well as adapting it to have like a little bit more breadth and depth for our older children. And they come in and do all sorts of things, like they own a farm, so they brought some baby lambs in pre-COVID, which obviously the nursery reception children absolutely loved. And although you don't need a real lamb to tell the story of the lost sheep, when you have it, it's far more memorable for the children. So they've been brilliant. I've worked with them for a number of years. If I give you another example, I'm trying to find a quick one now that I can give you. I won't put it on the spot, but Midge, we've had in schools a lot as well. And again, having that experience of being a teacher is not the be all and end all. However, especially when Midge came in, you could tell that she knew how to engage with the children, and being able to ask us what it is that we want her to cover. She was able to tell lots of stories, talk to the children, answer their questions, because those of you who have been into schools, the questions children come out with, you can never prepare for. The things they ask you really put you on the spot sometimes. Midge was brilliant with that one. And towards the back, you've got Andy Good. He is a pastor at Hudson Baptist Church. I work very closely with Andy, and he is an ex-high school teacher who is able to come in and basically tailor what the schools want. So he can come in and he can talk about different faiths. He can talk about a certain concept. For example, he came in and taught some of my year sixes about prayer in different religions, what that looks like, how different people access it, if they live on their own, if they go and worship together, things like that. So everybody in here has also given me how they will adapt to COVID. So most of them, in fact, all of them were able to offer something online. Others are more comfortable with that. And again, as a teacher, that's really useful to know whether somebody is going to be able to adapt themselves to being online, because it seems to be the new reality that we're facing, that plans seem to change every 5 minutes. And so that was what it's supposed to be, a start, like you said, a start to having some really useful people and places to go to support the schools.
Midge and I both know Mike and Suzanne Haddon. We can vouch for them as well. And I know Daxa, know Agistana. So there's quite a few that we already know. I've met on the circuit from other schools. And but as I say, we do need to have really good people. Now, I do have to point out that we don't endorse them. We don't own them in any way as Sacre. We cannot endorse them. We cannot be put into that legal position in any way. And but they do follow all of the school rulings with regards to their the checks on them and within the safeguarding of that. So, and if we're looking for somebody, it's got to be somebody that can relate at children's level, whichever the age of children that they would like to meet. And it can be at different levels. You offer to go in and be part of an assembly if you're not really comfortable with teaching in the classroom in any way. You could go and be a part of a whole day that they put on when there's several people there and you're all following the same script. And you will always have a teacher in the classroom with you. You're never left on your own. You can be involved with primary children, and there where you're doing dressing up, colouring, playing with tinsel, all those types of things. Or you set up an altar. I would set up an altar and they'd all come and bow to it, you know, to do role play, that type of thing. Right through to, once you start getting to the secondary schools, again, you can go in and be part of an assembly, but if you're meeting with them, you might be asked to be part of a debate. They do ask for experience, you know, what is the experience of how you pray, that type of thing. And then if you're actually qualified to, right up to being able to take proper class lessons in the subject. So there's quite a range of what we could offer for each individual, if they're capable. But even if you're just really solidly within your faith, there is a role to play should you feel inclined. But you have to have your, what is it called? The DBS enhanced before you're allowed to go into the schools. So if you can pass that around to your groups, to see if there is anybody suitable. But there's no point in anybody going in that doesn't know how to relate to children and what the syllabus is today. They need to be aware of that as well, because there's no point, for instance, somebody, excuse me, John, but a councillor Stone or my age going into the school that hasn't heard about RE from when they were at school. It's so completely different. And I met a gentleman that isn't mentioned in here, but he's not going into the schools. And he had no concept of how RE was taught in the schools. So again, it needs to be very relevant to the schools for us to be of any use. But so if anybody's got any names of any people that could be interviewed in the softest terms, please mention it to Tracy or copy myself in as well. Hopefully we can improve upon this, but thank you, Tracy, for all your hard work on that one.
Are you happy for me to talk about the groups?
Mm-hmm.
You happy for me to talk about the groups next?
Yes, please,
Okay.
yeah.
So in our local, so we have one RE lead group that's affiliated with NATRA, and we met twice last year. We tend to meet twice, and then our third one tends to be the conference, as I know how busy teachers are that coming out, or even of an evening is very difficult. And so I've given everybody around the table a copy of the minutes taken from the autumn meeting, and then a copy of the PowerPoint from the summer meeting. It turned out to be the beginning of summer. It was supposed to be spring, but with lockdown part 2, everything kind of got bumped along. So it did end up coming in April, when it would normally be February, March time. In the autumn meeting, we had 33 delegates from across Herefordshire. I have found that being online, people are able to engage more, given that a lot of the schools that come into Herefordshire are a long drive from where I'm based, that actually it works much better for them, and multiple members of staff are able to attend rather than one person coming to me and them trying to then cascade outwards. It means they can have their weekly staff meeting as my meeting. So it's almost like directing that training much better. So when I spoke to the teachers in our April meeting, they were very keen for the foreseeable future to keep it online, just because meetings are quite short. We try to keep them only 45 minutes because I know what it's like after school with marking and all that jazz, that they need it to be quite short and very meaningful. So in autumn, we were very lucky to have Stephen as a guest speaker. He spoke to the schools specifically about the Understanding Christianity resource. Obviously the new syllabus had come out. There were lots of schools that hadn't heard of it. So he gave them like a bit of a taster, which got them all excited, and then kind of directed them off towards the diocese to look for them some training, which really helped get schools excited by the new syllabus. Because as a teacher, change is scary. So when obviously the new syllabus came out, some schools were a little bit daunting. So it was nice just to reassure them that there were things out there that could help them. So autumn one was really successful. People asked lots of questions. So in the minutes of the meeting, which I'm happy to share to be added to the agenda, people asked questions about things like Bibles, what Bibles are using, and being online, there's more schools to contribute, put their hand up and say, well, we use this one, we use this one. So that was really useful. In the summer term, which was supposed to be the spring term meeting, I spoke to schools about the guide to people and places. We had 24 delegates at that one, and we had a chance to talk about ways to make the most of a people and place visit. So I put together some resources that I have used over the years when I've had a visitor or we've gone somewhere, and within kind of the teaching community, we talked about how it's very easy, especially for more experienced teachers, that you go on a visit or you have somebody in and then you write about it. A written recall, we call it, and we're all very keen on those. And also when you go to a church or you get lucky enough to go out of county and visit mosques and synagogues, you take a clipboard with a tick list of, have you seen this? So I did a little bit of training with the teachers on how to get more, make it even more meaningful. It is great to go and look for a list of things. However, there are other things that you can do prior to the visit, after the visit, to really make it a big part of the unit that you're covering. And I think teachers found that really useful. And if they came to that network, then the resources were shared with them that they could then use in their schools. And teachers are finding that quite useful. The networks have become about sharing resources with schools that I put together to help them with, normally we do it off the back of the syllabus, what's been discussed, how can we develop this in our schools, as time is a precious thing at the moment, and that's what teachers are finding, is finding the time to go out there and find things that will really enhance the children's learning. We did have two visitors, two guest speakers, at our last meeting, and they're both people that are in this guide that we've had visit us in school, and they spoke to the teachers about what they can offer, and they had the chance to ask the teachers, what is it you want from us? How can we make the most impact in your classroom and to enhance your teaching? And people found that really useful, because sometimes teachers said they felt nervous when they approached someone to come in, actually saying, this is what I want, this is what I need. So it was useful having that dialogue between the people, even though it's for any short time. They found that really useful. Our next one is this coming Monday. Any members of Sacre are more than welcome to attend. It's called the 12+ Resources of Christmas. And we're doing it as just a resource sharing time, because as we get to the end of term, many teachers still enthusiastically working are very, very stretched and tired. So it's going to be a case of, here are lots of resources for exploring Christmas across the faiths and on a non-religious basis. And people have been invited to bring resources to share. So I've got several resources that I'm going to share, and then people are going to be put in breakout rooms to then share resources amongst themselves, and then mixed up to meet with somebody else to share resources. Hopefully by the end of the meeting, they will have 12 or more resources to take away, that in that kind of those last few weeks of term, things are feeling a little bit tough. There's some really meaningful activities that are able to happen. So if anybody would like to contribute a resource or an idea, even if it's a website that has a particularly lovely Christmas story from your faith, I would be most grateful. Please do email me over the weekend. That would be lovely. Is that okay?
Oh, yes, brilliant. Thank you, Tracy. And Midge and I tend to attend these meetings when we can. But so, yes, everybody around this table is most welcome to attend. So do talk to her about that. And I feel that we should attend, you know, even if it's a few of us each time, to let them know about Sacre and just support them in every way that we can. And perhaps if I could join in the spring one, and I'll talk about the conferences and where we got to various things there. Okay. Any comments, please, from around the table?
I just want to say very well done, Tracy. And I'm sure the teachers just love you.
Yes, we have to be very careful that we nurture Tracy and we don't get her to burn out. You know? But please, can you pass the biscuits and crisps along? You know, so everybody, if you want something to eat, please do. Yes, please. Yeah. It's 3:30, folks. So just so we know what the timing is, and we've got 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Please, Tracy.
The last thing that I was going to talk about is the Sacre newsletter. The first edition ever went out in May 2021 this year. What we wanted to do was to basically have that connection with schools. So my network meetings, I always mention us and I always say how wonderful we all are. But it was to be able to basically highlight what's going on in the schools. So we get obviously very comprehensive reports from Stephen and about all the other side of stuff. We don't tend to get a great deal of opportunities, how busy our agenda is, to talk about all the wonderful things that are happening and celebrate the fact that in Herefordshire we have some really, really good RE happening. So Midge very kindly put together lots of things for me and I just really played with it and made it a bit pretty. So we wanted to put in some examples and of children's work in the long run. We want to see photographs. We want to really just showcase the wonderful things going on. So the one we sent out in May had lots of information about the conferences coming up, the RE Quality Mark that was coming up, the Spirited Arts competition that's run by Natra every year that closes at the end of July. So and just to let schools know that all these things are happening, all these opportunities are there. And then hopefully on Monday, when I meet with our teacher group, that they'll be able to feedback some of the things they did for the Spirited Arts. I'm going to ask them for any nativity photos and things like that they're doing at Christmas, because I'm sure there's going to be lots of cute donkeys and Marys about this year. So we wanted to start to try and build up that relationship with the schools so that we don't feel quite so disconnected at times from them, and show them that actually we are here to show what they're doing and we're here to support them, but we're also here to celebrate the great things they're doing as a result of our lovely support. So I've given everybody around the table a copy. Hopefully you haven't got one. I do apologise, I'll bring you one round. And then if people are happy, Midge is happy, we'll work together to do another edition maybe after Christmas, if everyone's happy for us to do that. And we would love any contributions, anything you'd like to either see in it or would like to share with schools. The more the better, please.
Now, we plan to send one of these out each term. This is quite our new initiative, but we cannot rely on Midge and Tracy doing them all. So we need somebody to commit, please, to doing the following one after Easter. So maybe, yes, please. And do call on one of the other two teachers that are also around the table, and perhaps between the three of you. Any comments from the floor? Or we move on? So I think it's Mark, it's you doing the diocese training, isn't it, please?
Yeah, we offer an SLA to our schools. Our schools aren't just in Herefordshire, of course, we also have schools in South Shropshire as well, though they are actually following the same model syllabus, or will be after that in the next year. They've just had their conference for that as well. So there's a lot of overlap with similar themes going on, as well as Telford and Wrekin Sacre as well. This year we've been offering training working with local faith leaders, with Imam Sahib, with Mark Michaels as well, a Jewish believer that's does a lot of work for the Holocaust Memorial around various counties, and also with a member of the Temple in Tiverdale as well, where we've been running sessions for teachers looking at their knowledge about religions. It's not about providing ideas for activities, but actually giving them the background to what the beliefs are and the diversity within those beliefs as well. We're having a very big push on how we're developing diversity and the idea of worldviews across in our training. We've also, as was pointed out earlier, we do a lot of the understanding Christianity training, including refresher training for schools, because often the person that did the training in the first place might not still be in the same school. So we provide refresher training to try and boost them up and make sure they know how to use it properly. Subject leader training, SIAMS training specifically about RE as well, with the changes going on there. I do lots of meetings with individual schools looking at their curriculum design, trying to make sure they get their maps and thinking about the decisions that they make and how that affects the impact and the spiral nature as well. We've just started a new moderation network to look at assessment and moderation, where we were looking at what it says within the syllabus and also Ofsted's recommendations in the subject review, and thinking about how that works and what will be the best forms of assessment. And we're going to try an online moderation of some units from the Christianity elements to start with after Christmas, to have a look and see how that works with schools sending in work to moderate online. We've also started a new link governor briefing, because we're recommending to our schools that they have a link governor for RE that can then come to meetings and be informed of what's going on in the RE universe, so they know and are up to date. Like you said, it isn't someone that thinks RE is still the same as it used to be, but actually knows what's going on, and then can work with their RE coordinator to make sure the subject's given the prominence that it should do, as well as lots of other things on. We're doing a lot of work on worldviews as well, and trying to develop that in our schools at the moment as well.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mark. I certainly would like to talk to you about it more deeply offline at some point when you've got a little bit of time, because I'm really interested in what's happening. We haven't got time around the table to chat, but comments from the floor, please.
Do all schools have access to this training, or is it just Church of England schools or church schools?
We offer an SLA for our training that schools buy into. Schools that haven't bought a partnership can join in with it. At the moment, we don't, but we did have one non-church school join us previously. It's a matter of getting the information to them as well. But there would be a fee, because we have to pay for our time to do it, obviously. So, but if schools want, and maybe it might be that we put our training program through the newsletter so that people can see it as well and access it that way. Because we have got Jill Basie coming in next week to do some work on early years, actually, as well. She's coming to a session to look at the new framework.
It sounds as if you're doing a lot of hard work at the moment. It's good. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for that. We go on to the Sacre membership. Actually, we were going to have two visitors today. One of them was going to be our local diversity officer, but unfortunately, he's lost his role. He hasn't lost his job. He has lost his job, but the role is lost, it seems. And we used to work very closely with him, and I used to work very closely with him with anybody who moved into the area, etc. And his role has been broken up into 3 separate people, and I'm afraid none of them are own up to who they are. So involvement has come to a grinding halt. And it seems as if, and it's my words and my thoughts on this, that perhaps the funding has been absorbed into somewhere else and we won't be getting a new diversity officer. Nobody will answer me either way, unfortunately. And Matt's tried to get whoever's doing the job now to speak up and nobody's responding. So I'm a little bit disappointed about that, of course. I think we do need a diversity officer in Herefordshire, and perhaps our 2 councillors could even raise that further. And your chairman of the council knows my views on the matter. Yes, please, councillor.
I will certainly raise that issue because I agree wholeheartedly that we need a diversity.
It's called a community cohesion officer, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the point. We'll come to sorry. I think it's the point that we are an isolated rural community. We're isolated from all that the city has, all their communities that they can tap into. So they need a diversity officer more, perhaps, than some other areas do. So I'm personally, think that even as chairman of Sacre, I feel I'm able to speak up on this one because it is a matter that we were working closely with Neville Meredith.
Is it possible that that role has been absorbed into Talk Community?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear that.
Is it possible that the role has been absorbed into the Talk Community initiative? Because it is, the other name for it is Community Cohesion Officer, isn't it?
I don't know, but nobody's owning up to having the role. I've tried through Matt, they're in his office, some of the people apparently, or one of them is, but Councillor Stone, you wanted to make a comment as well.
I agree with Councillor Hewitt. I think we need to find out who that person is. It may be more than one person, of course, and she may also be right that it may have been absorbed into Talk Community, which is a slightly different concept. But Neville Meredith did an excellent job as diversity officer with his No Prejudice in Herefordshire campaign over the years. Very sorry to see him go, but we'll certainly try and find out when in advance of the next Sacre meeting what's happening. We may even find out in the next few weeks, but I'll certainly look into it as Councillor Hewitt will as well.
Thank you both of you. And please, can we have feedback by email, perhaps rather than waiting until March? That might be helpful. Please.
We'll see what we can do, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And also, we were going to have a humanist representative that was coming up from Gloucestershire. I wasn't aware of the one that visits the schools locally. And they've sent this statement. It's appended for page 41. A note about my role on the Sacre in Gloucestershire. I have been a member of Gloucestershire's Sacre for approximately 2 years, taking over the position from another member of our group. I am an advisory member of Sacre and have no voting rights. During the time of my involvement, there has been a review of the curriculum, so I have not yet been involved in that process. There has not been a review. The Sacre meet regularly every quarter, right? So my participation in these discussions has been the perspective of someone who values freedom of thought, right to participate, and love of learning. It hasn't actually put anything here. I'm sorry, I'm reading it for the first time as I go to scroll down. They're saying about the Humans UK have released a new short video on the meaning of life, entitled "How Can I Be Happy?" It's not mentioning any of his involvement in the schools, his experience. Because what we were going to be discussing, for those who know, is do we have a humanist on our Sacre? Some Sacres around the country have, some haven't. And it was really to have a discussion about, should we should be representing the faiths that are in Herefordshire, and do we feel that a humanist should be a part of that? So please, can I open it to the floor for comment?
I'd like to say,
Councillor Hewitt?
so that in your constitution it says we have a duty to enable children to take their place in the world as rounded and free-thinking individuals, and to have an understanding of the diversity of all those living in the UK. And I think the inclusion of a humanist perspective would actually be very helpful to this committee.
Councillor Stone.
I agree with Councillor Hewitt. I think we need to be inclusive. We did have this debate many years ago on Sacre, and it eventually came to the conclusion. Actually, one of the humanist representatives did come along and address us. Possibly didn't do a brilliant job. A number of people not very impressed, and we came to the conclusion, maybe reluctantly, not to go down that particular route. But I think times move on as they do, and it probably might be an opportunity to do that now. I'm fairly sort of evenly balanced about it, but generally speaking, I agree with Councillor Hewitt that it would be a step forward, and it just gives another perspective, and whoever comes forward as representative give their views, and we can either agree with them or not, as the case may be. But I think it's something we should be doing. This is like Gloucestershire.
And any other comments? Yes, please.
I certainly would have no objections. We want to be as inclusive as possible, but we also need to bear in mind humanism is not the only non-religious worldview at the same time, and are there other groups that also we should be bearing in mind at the same time then?
That's a very good point there. I mean, I personally feel that as we've got a humanist who already visits the schools, then it's quite a good idea to have somebody within the group so that we can have supported training and we know who's visiting in the schools, and to ensure that nothing is done on an evangelical basis. Yes, did you want to make a comment?
I was just going to say that actually worldviews are in our syllabus, aren't they?
Yes.
So I suppose to back up our syllabus, we should have a representative of worldviews other than those of other faiths. Although it does seem a bit odd that someone wants to come on a religious education committee and they're not religious. But, you know, as we do have it in our syllabus, it probably makes sense.
I think almost just throwing out the thought that if you're teaching RE in the schools, to have somebody who's also voicing the opinion of the many who live in the county, although humanists are a group. When humanists used to have on their website that everybody who's not following a faith is automatically a humanist is not correct. So they have a viewpoint that they follow. It's good to have somebody there giving an alternative view for the children, because they're doing comparative religion. So it's almost like that's giving them not a foil, but an alternative viewpoint that's actually being voiced, if that makes sense. So could somebody perhaps, shall we propose that we have our constitution changed and to include a humanist representative? As our clerk, do you need to speak up on this one, on whether this would be a problem? And can we do a voting around the table?
You can just do a voting around the table, Chair. But yeah, you do need to take a vote on whether you want to expand your membership to include a humanist representative.
Would somebody like to propose that we include a humanist on our constitution? I'll finish the words because I have to. Yeah. So Lou Barker has proposed. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hewitt, thank you. And then shall I approach the humanist that's within Tracy's list to see whether that person would be interested, as they're already visiting in the schools? Just a show of hands, I'll be happy with. Okay, thank you very much. Now we're running out of time, which we knew we would be. We've got number 10 is an update on any new RE initiatives, which would be for Stephen. And then a roundtable updates, which we've almost covered. So if people can bear with us if we can get it through in the next 15 minutes, it'd be appreciated. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, so there are three things in this updates. One is in your papers from page 43 onwards. Each Sacre meeting, I try to put together some links and information about some of the things that are going on in the RE world. So we won't go through those in detail, but just do have a look through. There's lots of resources that are worth having a look at. There are lots of links to other places where lots of projects are going on nationally. So do have a look at those. Tracy mentioned the Spirited Arts, Naturally Spirited Arts competition, and do have a look at that. If you have a look at the link is actually for the 2021 Spirited Arts competition, whereas if you look on the website itself, you can see the information about 2022. But there's some fantastic artwork to have a look at with pupils, artwork, but also their comments about their thinking. So it's a really excellent material there. So yeah, please do have a look. You'll also notice there's stuff about the West Hill Awards, so you can see the sorts of projects that have won awards in the last year, and so that might guide suggestions for Herefordshire Sacre as well. So please, yeah, do have a quick look through that. So that's the first thing, and it may be that's those sets of links are worth sending out with any newsletter that we do. The second, the other two elements. One is about world use. Sacre asked last time to be updated on the REC's project. The other thing that's in there is also about Ofsted, the Ofsted Research Review. I just wanted to talk briefly and update you on both of those. So I'm going to start with Ofsted because that's out in schools now, and then talk more broadly about world use, some progress in the REC's world use project. So if Jenny, if you're happy to put up the Ofsted presentation slideshow. Yeah, that's right, thank you. So I will just go through this quickly, and I will read the slides that you might have difficulty seeing if I think they're worth reading. Since our last meeting in May 2021, Ofsted has produced a number of research reviews for a number of subjects. One of the first ones to come out was the research review on RE, which was very encouraging because usually RE is the last one to come out for anything. So that was good. It was in the first two that came out. It's very influential. It's the new subject lead for RE, Dr. Richard Quay, has looked at all the research, excellent research on religious education, and pulled together his description of what good RE looks like. He's not saying this is the only way you can do RE, but he's saying this is the kind of quality that RE needs to reach. One of his statements, so if you can put to slide 2, please. One of his statements, which sort of summarizes this, he says, in religious education, pupils enter into a rich discourse about religious and non-religious traditions that have shaped Great Britain and the world. So non-religious is in there, and among that is humanism, obviously, we've just been talking about that, but about being shaped. These traditions, religious and non-religious traditions, have shaped Great Britain and the world. RE in primary and secondary schools enables pupils to take their place within a diverse, multi-religious and multi-secular society. A really interesting phrase. So increasingly multi-religious, but also multi-secular. The non-religiousness of Great Britain is very diverse. And so that's something to bear in mind as well. And also think globally as well, that we're quite a secular country, and Western Europe is quite secular, but actually global, the world is quite religious. And then at its best, RE is intellectually challenging and personally enriching. It affords pupils both the opportunity to see the religion and non-religion of the world, and the opportunity to make sense of their own place in that world. So you can see there sort of summary that Dr. Richard Quay has put for that, which is about a rich subject that is a benefit for pupils, not just in knowing stuff, but actually thinking for themselves as well. So slide 3, please. Just a few quick things. The research review covers a lot of information. It's if you put it onto a Word document and print it, that's about 86 pages. There are 240 or so footnotes. So it is, but that's the point. It's linking you to all the key research there is on the subject. But it raises a few things. It reminds schools about the law, the legal requirement to teach RE. And that's for all pupils in all schools, unless they've been withdrawn by their parents, or if they're over 18, they withdraw themselves. It talks about the idea that RE should have an ambitious curriculum that is comparable in breadth and ambition to national curriculum as well. So no sense that it is meant to be less than other subjects. It talks about the difference between weakly framed and strongly framed curriculum delivery models, and that's what Ofsted are looking at. There's a caricature, although this does happen in some schools, would be in a secondary school where RE is mixed in a carousel with personal social health education and another subject, and you just get a couple of weeks a term on it. So that would be a weakly framed curriculum model. And it's arguing for strongly framed curriculum models. And it says, I've put one quote in there, the evolution of society's religious and non-religious landscape highlights that it is all the more important for pupils to build up accurate knowledge of the complexity and diversity of global religion and non-religion. Slide 4, please, Jenny, thank you. One of the things that is as notable in this report is to talk about knowledge. What is it? What knowledge is it that RE wants pupils to develop? And it divides knowledge into 3 categories: substantive, ways of knowing, sometimes called disciplinary knowledge, and personal knowledge. Now, substantive knowledge is the stuff, the content, the concepts, the ideas, the teachings, the practices of the subjects of the different traditions that are taught. So that's the substantive content. Ways of knowing is talking about how that knowledge is produced, where it's come from. So actually drawing attention to that, to the source of the knowledge and the origin of it, and encouraging pupils to recognize the differences in different ways knowledge is produced. Just going to give you an illustration. If you can give me slide 5, please, Jenny. So one thing is there are 2 texts there. There's an Islamic text in calligraphy, and then the opening chapter of Genesis 1, which is from the Hebrew Bible and Christian Old Testament. Now, there's one kind of knowledge, one kind of text, one kind of source that might be used in the classroom. And the idea of talking about ways of knowing is recognizing that for adherents within the traditions, this has particular weight. Many would believe that it's divinely inspired, and therefore it has a particular authority and might be treated in a certain way. And in fact, the texts assume the existence of God, don't they? If you can't see on there, but many of you will know the opening line of that Genesis says, "In the beginning, God." So there's an assumption. So that's helping pupils to recognize that. The third source there on the right-hand side is a survey, which talks about the percentage of people who say when they fill in a survey, say they are, in this case, Christian or other religions, or if they have no religion. And so you handle that in a different way. It's a different kind of piece of information. It's not assuming belief in God, for example. It is saying, here's some data, we have to analyze it. And you'll need to do several things with it. You need to say who asked the question, what question were they asked, and what does it mean, how do you interpret it? The interpretation comes into both the texts and also that data. So that's one way that you might explore ways of knowing in the classroom. Thank you, Jen. You can put the next slide. So we've got substantive, we've got ways of knowing, and we've got personal knowledge. Next slide, please. In terms of ways of knowing, that might mean that we ask different kinds of questions in the RE classroom. And you've got a few there. I've got 9 up there. But what is God like? What do people think God is like? Why are numbers of Christians going down in the UK? Are children more or less religious than their parents? So those are all different kinds of questions. And next slide, please, Jenny, thank you. You might put them into different academic disciplines. And this is one of the ways of knowing, saying actually academic disciplines ask different kinds of questions. And we've got some theological questions, we've got some sociological questions, and we've got some psychological questions there. And so this is just beginning with children quite young, beginning to get them to realise that you get information and knowledge from different contexts. And so the next slide, please, Jenny, thank you, is just to indicate that the current syllabus does have different kinds of questions. It has some theological, some sociological, and some psychological. They aren't highlighted quite as clearly as they would have been if the Ofsted Research Review had come out a year earlier, when we would have been able to adjust it. But this is the sort of thing that means that when we come up to training and conferences, we can begin to encourage teachers to look at that and to see where the differences are in the curriculum. Thank you, Jenny. Next slide. So we've got substantive ways of knowing and we've got personal knowledge. In terms of personal knowledge, the research review talks about this being about the perspective of the learner, the perspective of the pupils, sometimes called personal worldview, sometimes their position, so that when they encounter the content that they explore, they're thinking about where they come from as well. So there'll be some pupils who've got religious background, their worldview may include some religious elements. There'll be plenty of pupils who are non-religious, and maybe the majority of pupils in Herefordshire schools will be non-religious. So what does that background bring when they encounter both religion and non-religion in the subject? Next slide, please, Jenny. So just to say that, although we haven't drawn, I mean, we did in the launch draw attention to this, but although the syllabus doesn't talk in these ways about substantive knowledge, ways of knowing, and personal knowledge, but the principal aim for the Herefordshire syllabus does include those three kinds of knowing. And so again, the training that we need to do over the next few years is to just point them out, just be clear. So when teachers are responding to the Ofsted Research Review, they can see that the syllabus supports them in developing that. And next slide as well, please. We'll finish with this one before we move on to worldview. So just the idea of curriculum is really key in the current Ofsted framework, 2019 framework, and then this research review looks at this, the idea about sequencing learning, about thinking about what people know already and where they're going, so you help them on that journey. It talks about balance of content. It's not possible to teach everything. It's not possible to fit it all in the curriculum. So it's about talking about what is cumulatively sufficient. And it uses that phrase, and teachers will be arguing about what that actually means from now on, and what it looks like. What is cumulatively sufficient? How much do pupils need to know to be able to equip them to encounter religion and non-religion beyond the school? They can't learn everything, so what do they need to know? And then that last point there about having ambitious end goals, right? Not looking for the lowest, it's just sort of tick box things. It's like, what do we really want? So that's the Ofsted Research Review. The link is in the agenda papers, so do click on there when you've got some time to have a look at it. It is very well put together, and it will be very influential over the coming years. So that's the Ofsted Research Review. And the last meeting you asked about the REC project on worldviews. So Jenny, do you mind if we have a look at the other slideshow? Again, I'll do this very quickly. We may be coming back to worldviews again at a later date, just because they will be a key thing over the next few years, I think. So I am going to talk just quickly, if you go to slide 2, about the REC's projects themselves, and then about the implications for Herefordshire. So many of you will remember that the Commission on RE brought out its report in 2018. It was called Religions and Worldviews, the Way Forward, and it encouraged that the subject should shift really to a study of religion and worldviews rather than one which is what is currently called religious education. And in that report, It made a few statements, one of which said that everyone has a worldview, and then it just so that everybody in this room, all the pupils as well, have worldviews. So, Jenny, are you able to put the other?
Is this the video now, is it?
Not yet. It's the other, just the other slides.
Yeah, am I on during the game?
You did have it up for a moment. I'll keep talking. Yes, that one there.
Had the rookie mistake to leave them open. There we go.
So if we can go to slide 3. So we talk about everyone having a worldview, and then it distinguishes between institutional and organised worldviews. So, for example, the Roman Catholic Church would be an institutional worldview, but within those, within that institutional worldview, there'd be individual Catholics whose worldview is not identical to the teachings of the Catholic Church. So it's to show the real diversity between the organised and the personal or individual worldviews. That's part of what the Commission talks about. And it says the purpose of religion and worldviews is to enable each pupil to understand, reflect on, and develop their own personal worldview, and then to understand the worldviews of others. So next slide, please, Jenny. So since 2018, the RE Council in Wales have been launching this Worldviews project. It's been 2 phases. The first phase include getting some academics to write a literature review to say what the academic disciplines, what they mean by the term worldview. So a very rich history of it, relatively recent, but very rich history. And so that literature review looks at anthropology and theology and sociology and RE as well, and looks at how it uses the word worldview. Then they've got a group of academics together to talk about the role of worldviews and what they mean and what implications they may have for RE. And they produce those discussion papers written by Amira Tarani. And so that's not an account, that's her reflection on the discussions and the proposal and some ideas for Sacre and others to talk about. So they produced that. That was phase 1. And then they recognise that the real challenge is, well, there are several challenges. One is to understand what people actually mean by worldviews in a way that is comprehensible for pupils and for teachers. And so the RE Council has commissioned some animations, and also an organisation called Theos has produced an animation to try to summarise this, what a worldview is. So, Jenny, if it's possible to play the video. So this is from Theos, the Theos group. They commissioned a designer to present this. To present this short animation to show what people mean by worldviews. Thank you. Can't hear the sound, unfortunately.
Joe, we've got no sound.
You did earlier when you.
Is that little box? Just stop sharing.
Can you hear it now?
No. I think if you stop sharing and then do share screen again, and there's that little tick box, you've got to click the share sound.
Higher power? Or do you see the world as a cocktail of chance and accident? Everyone has the
Thank you.
What is your view of the world? How do you see things? What makes you who you are? On what do you base your decisions? Why did you react like that? Do you believe in God or a higher power? Or do you see the world as a cocktail of chance and accident? Everyone has a worldview, whether religious or not. Each individual sees the world through a certain lens. It may be shaped by your upbringing, surroundings, or religion, and it can change as you move through life. Worldview can be both personal and organised. It is your attitudes and deeply held beliefs. It shapes how you live. It's important to think about your own worldview. Where do you think truth lies? What about the worldviews of those around you? Do you understand them? They may not be as similar to yours as you expect. Or perhaps your worldviews will be more alike. Some people may feel that life is about success and improvement, being the best you can be. And some think it's about helping the most vulnerable in society. Others may believe belonging to a group is vital for finding meaning, while another treasures belonging to the earth in all its beauty. And still, most of us will not see the world through only one lens, but rather through a blend of multiple visions. In an increasingly pluralistic society, understanding the world around us means realizing that there is no neutral perspective. Nobody stands nowhere. Do you know where you stand? And why?
Okay, thank you. So that's one of the resources to try to help people understand what the RE Council means by worldviews. And so the phase 2 of the REC project is to take the information that was produced in phase 1 and move it a step closer to the classroom. One of the things that came up in the academic discussion was, okay, this is all very well, but what does it mean for the RE classroom? And so that Theos video is one way. I know a lot of schools are using that with pupils to get them to think about perhaps an idea they've never thought about before, which is that they come to the world with ideas already. And it shapes who they are, and it shapes how they think and respond to things. And so the second phase of the REC project is to take all that information and produce some guidelines for syllabus writers and for curriculum leaders in multi-academy trusts and such like. And so the idea is that over the next, it means going for 6 months, over the next 2.5 years, it produces some guidelines, a revised statement of entitlement from the Commission reports, a revised version of that, gets some examples of what it would look like to develop a curriculum, some case studies to enable teachers to see what that would look like, and some materials from some units of work and also some pupil responses as well. So that would mean that by 2024, there'll be a whole load of resources that will be out and ready to think about what a worldview's approach to the subject means. We'll try to deal with all the questions about what do we mean by cumulatively sufficient? How does that mean we engage with a wide range of religious and non-religious worldviews in the classroom? That material will be out there just in time for us to begin reviewing the agreed syllabus for Herefordshire for the new one in 2026. So that's, or 2025. So that's the Worldviews project as it is at the moment, and the sort of direction it's going. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion going on as people engage with it. But one of the things that we found already is how what's about that short video has as well, on recognizing that all pupils will be involved in this. It's not like saying, well, I'm not religious, it's nothing to do with me. It's like that. It's about you as well. Everyone has a role.
Thank you, Stephen, for that. I challenged him to turn the 5,000 pages or whatever it was into an easy way for us to understand within our time frame. And he actually reminded me that he has to allocate on every 15 minutes who he works for. So yes, thank you for managing to do all that. I'm not sure how much it's going to cost us. My concern in the early days, and I'm not sure whether it has been answered now or not, was whether we're going to be subsumed into something and then ignored, so that RE no longer has a place in the classroom, that the hours are somehow used up. Do we know how it's going to pan out?
I think you have to see that this is in relation to Ofsted. Ofsted's reminder about the legal requirement for RE and the immense value of it as well. And so this worldviews approach to an education in religion and worldviews is not about trying to dissolve the subject. It's about making it more central, more relevant, more rich in terms of what pupils get to learn and what they understand as a result. So, yeah.
What do you teachers feel about all this?
I think it's just giving it that balance. So for a long time, teachers always kind of shying away from it because it seemed like a daunting concept, though the biggest thing was there was not the resources to teach it. And I think teachers are always very scared of teaching the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing. So videos like that are massively exciting to me because it's having that way to discuss something that's quite a difficult concept, especially for younger children, to actually start the dialogue. And once you've started that dialogue, actually it draws on all the other teachers. So all the other teaching in RE will still have a massive, massive place. It helps to complement it, to then be able to reach out further of, right, this is how it's looked at here, that in the wider world, how is it looked at, and a different way to look at things. If anything, it's exciting because it kind of sparks those discussions.
How about you, Mark? And then Luke, please.
I've started using it in training with schools, actually using the film and using the idea of lenses and exploring, it's that diversity again of belief, but also to use a personal example, a school I used to lead RE in, we had a teacher, it was a church school, but there was a teacher who declared herself as atheist. And she was like, how do I lead worship? How do I do RE and not confuse the children? And it was actually explaining through this idea that actually your worldview matters in the classroom too. You're okay to talk about what you say and what you believe, as long as you don't say, this is what you must believe, same as we wouldn't. So it's actually enabling adults as well as in the classrooms, as well as the children, to understand that we will have diverse viewpoints, but that's the beauty of RE. It's putting all those into a melting pot and seeing what we learn from each other at the same time. But at the same time, making sure, like you say, it isn't a dilution, but actually it strengthens those skills, those ways of knowing, so that pupils are able to answer those spiritual questions when they reach adolescence, for example. They're more prepared because they've looked at more ways of understanding it.
I wholeheartedly agree with everything they've said. I think it helps the students, the young people, to connect and see the relevance of the subject, and helps them to see how it links to their own lives and how important it is. We just build the importance of RE.
It seems maybe now seeing a little bit more about it coming through, that it's just a question of the teachers changing their language. And once they've changed their language, the new phraseology, that you feel more comfortable anyway.
And also hopefully resources will come through that support that, textbooks, etc., will follow suit. Because quite frequently textbooks at the moment can be a bit diluted. It's very much reliant on the teacher's expertise for them to bring that in to the activities.
Which sort of brings me round to the circle at the point, is this going to cost us within Sacre in a financial way? Are we going to have whoever is our RE advisor doing extra work in any respect? Or is that asking the question too soon? I'm just thinking of our finances, if we're putting forward for funding.
Are you asking me if I'll do this for 30 quid?
I'll share my sandwiches with you if you like.
I think that there's no immediate implications, funding implications to Sacre. The REC project is going ahead. The resources that are produced there'll be a draft handbook in May 2022. It'll be distributed for free, and the other resources at the end of the 3 years will be for free, so that schools, curriculum developers and Sacres can make use of them. A little bit like the 2004 framework and the 2013 framework were made available for schools to use. So that's the idea, that it's supporting Sacres and MATs and dioceses and schools to be able to plan with a religion or worldviews approach.
Brilliant, thank you. Yes, Councillor Hewitt.
Can I just say I found it really inspiring. I'm not teaching anymore, but you know that whole thing about the inclusivity for every single child who may sit there and think, well, what does this religion mean to me? And they can sit there with a feeling of, okay, so how do I think about that? You know, what I think matters. You know, my gender matters, my biodiversity, you know, the wholeness of the experience in my life matters. And I just found it really inspiring. So thank you, Stephen. Thanks for presenting it to us.
Any other comments, people? Yes, thank you, Stephen, for that. And do we have to start putting it down as an agenda item each time at the moment so that we're kept up to date? Or
yeah, you can do. I mean, I can report back on the REC project each time. There won't be any more information released until May. So in one sense, it won't be till the autumn that we have more detail, although some of it may have an impact on the summer conferences.
okay, thank you for that. Okay. It's
I suggest it goes on the agenda, Chairman, for the next November meeting. It doesn't need to for the March meeting. And it is 4:20, Chair.
Oh, sorry. Yes, right. We've got just a very quick round. So if the clerk could put it on for our next November agenda, please.
Will do, Chair.
That well with you. Yes, thank you. Okay, and bearing in mind what the time is, very, very quick. Are there any RE updates from members that you would like us to be aware of? Bearing in mind, you can, because of circumstances with us only having 2 meetings, you're most welcome to email anything that comes up. If you're doing something that you can suddenly invite us to, or anything like that, or we need to be, you know, nicely need to be aware of, as it were, do let us know. Do let us know news throughout the time. And the next meeting is going to be 11th of March. If you could put that in your diaries, please. And thank you all very much for your time this afternoon. As we can all appreciate, if we can get our 3 meetings back, we can spread this out a little. Otherwise, it is going to be 2 to 2.5 hours long each time, just to get through. And if we get more members, which we need to do, it will take even longer. But thank you, Stephen, for all your hard work that you put in for us. And he supports me in the background. I usually call him about once a term over something that's going on. And we have a pre-meeting. So he does quite a lot of work that doesn't sort of show up at the table, as it were. And thank you, John, for your support, continuing support. I feel now as if I've become chairman at long last.
That's a pleasure, Chairman.
Okay, thank you all for your time. Travel safely home. If it's our first time of going home in the dark.
It was busy on Friday afternoon.
Yes.
Herefordshire Road.
We can sneak out this way. We're going to. We'll go right in, not left.
Can I stop the live stream?
Can we have the live streams off? Is it?
I'll do now. Thank you.
Really is.